The system that slows your hybrid down and quietly recharges its battery every time you lift off the accelerator was so effective in Formula One that it caused years of argument, walkouts, and one very bad afternoon for a mechanic who was thrown across a pit lane. And here's the twist most people never hear. A version of that exact same system doesn't just live in supercars and hybrids. It has been fitted to ordinary city buses, the kind you might have ridden to work this morning, without the faintest idea that you were sitting on top of Formula One technology. Now, I've called it banned, and we need to be honest right away because this channel gets it right. The rulebook never actually outlawed it. What happened is stranger. The teams themselves, having spent fortunes building it, looked at what it cost, what it weighed, and how dangerous it was, and simply agreed, together, to stop using it for a whole year. A technology that could win races, boycotted by the very people who'd invented it. So, in the next few minutes, 3 questions. 1. How can braking, of all things, actually charge a battery instead of just wasting energy? 2. If this system was so good, why on earth did Formula One teams refuse to run it? And 3. What does a London bus have in common with a Ferrari Grand Prix car? Stick around, because the answer runs from a fire alarm at a race factory, through a spinning carbon wheel, to the brakes on your own car. Let's start with something you do a dozen times on the way to work and never think about: slowing down. Your car, moving, is full of energy, the energy it took fuel to create, to get all that metal up to speed. Now you come to a red light. To stop, you have to get rid of that energy. It doesn't just vanish. The laws of physics won't allow that. It has to go somewhere. In an ordinary car, it goes into heat. Your brake pads clamp onto metal discs, friction turns motion into warmth, and that warmth pours off into the air and is gone forever. Every single time you brake, you are quite literally throwing away the energy you paid for at the fuel pump as heat. Think of stopping a bicycle by pressing your shoe against the tire. It works, but all that speed just becomes a hot shoe. Nothing useful comes back. And engineers stared at that waste for decades and asked an obvious question: what if, instead of burning that energy off, we could catch it, store it, and then spend it again a few seconds later, when we need a push? Here's the beautiful part, the trick that makes it all possible. An electric motor and a generator are, deep down, the same machine, just run in opposite directions. Feed a motor electricity, and it spins and drives the wheels. But force that same motor to spin, let the moving car turn it, and it does the reverse. It pushes back, and it generates electricity. So slowing down and charging up become the very same action. The car's motion spins the motor fights back, which slows you down, and while it fights back, it pours electricity into the battery. You brake, and you charge, at the same time. That is regenerative braking. Now, one honest bit of history. Formula One did not invent this. A Toyota Prius was doing regenerative braking on the school run back in 1997, years before F1 touched it. And the basic idea is older still. Electric trains have clawed energy back for the best part of a century. What Formula One did was take this humble economy car idea, drag it into the most extreme, most competitive engineering environment on Earth, and ask, how much energy can we grab? How fast? And can it win us a race? In 2009, they gave it a name, KERS, the Kinetic Energy Recovery System, and everything changed. Because the moment you try to catch that much energy, that quickly, you run into a very hard problem. Where do you put it? Problem 1, and we've half solved it already. In a Formula One car, they bolted a motor generator to the drivetrain, brake into a corner, and that unit spins, fights the car's motion, helping slow it, and turns the braking energy into electricity. The numbers were strict. The rules let teams harvest and then release a boost of around 80 horsepower, but only for about 6.5 seconds per lap. A push-to-pass button, essentially, charged entirely by braking. Small, but in a sport decided by hundredths of a second, enough to matter. But catching the electricity is the easy half. Now you're holding a sudden, violent surge of energy from one heavy braking zone, and you need somewhere to dump it in a fraction of a second. That storage problem split Formula One down the middle, into 2 rival camps. Most teams did the obvious thing. A battery or a supercapacitor store the energy as chemistry, as electrical charge. Simple in principle, except nothing about it was simple. To be useful in a race, that battery had to swallow a big gulp of energy and give it back almost instantly, which means very high voltages, packed into a tiny space inside a car being thrown around at 200 miles an hour. And it added weight around 25 kilograms carried high up, which raised the car's center of gravity and hurt it through the corners. So the battery camp bought their energy back at a real price: weight, complexity, and, as we'll see shortly, genuine danger, which left a tantalizing question hanging in the air. If the battery is the problem, what if you never used one at all? Here's the leap. One team, Williams, asked a brilliant, sideways question. Why convert the energy into chemistry at all? Why not store it as what it already is, movement? Their answer was a flywheel. Picture a disc of carbon fiber in a sealed housing. When you brake, instead of charging a battery, you use the energy to spin that disc up faster and faster and faster. To speed the car back up, you tap the spinning disc and let it hand the motion back. The energy is never chemistry. It stays as pure rotation, waiting. Think of a child's spinning top. One flick of the wrist, and it stores that effort as spin, holding it, ready to keep going long after your hand has gone. The flywheel is that idea, engineered to a knife edge. And the numbers are properly startling. That carbon disc spins at up to 36,000 revolutions per minute, many times faster than your engine will ever turn. It weighs around 60 kilograms, and it can deliver a punch of 120 kilowatts. No chemistry to wear out, no battery to degrade a store of energy that can, in principle, last the life of the vehicle. Hold on to that flywheel, because it's the piece of this story that ends up somewhere you would never, ever expect. But first, one last problem, the one that decides whether any of this is safe enough for you to use. On a racetrack, drivers are trained to a hair. On the road, the system has to be invisible. Here's the catch. Regenerative braking is wonderful for gently slowing down, coasting to a red light, easing off in traffic, but it can't do everything. In an emergency stop, or at a crawl, or when the battery is already full and can't take any more charge, you still need real, old-fashioned friction brakes. So every hybrid and EV keeps its normal brakes too. The clever bit is the blend. A control unit mixes the two, regenerative and friction, behind the scenes, hundreds of times a second, so the pedal under your foot feels completely normal. You press, the car slows, and you have no idea how much of that stop charged your battery and how much was plain old friction. In the best electric cars, it's tuned so finely you can drive almost entirely on the accelerator liftoff, and the regen alone brings you smoothly to a halt. One pedal driving. So, catch the energy with a generator, store it in a battery or a flywheel, blend it invisibly with the old brakes. Elegant, efficient, green. And yet Formula One, the sport that perfected it, took one look and walked away. To understand why, we have to go back to a test session in Spain, and a mechanic who simply reached out to push a car. 2008, pre-season testing before Kurz had even raced. A BMW Sauber car rolls back into the pit lane after a few slow laps. A mechanic does the most ordinary thing in the world. He reaches out to push it back into the garage, and he is thrown to the ground. A jolt of electricity had found its way from the car's high-voltage system, through the bodywork, and into him. He was taken to the medical center with a burn on his hand. He was thankfully not seriously hurt, and the team was later at pains to say there was no danger to life. But the message was unmistakable. This car, sitting still, could bite. And it wasn't the only warning. Just days earlier, at another team's factory, a Kurz battery being tested had gone wrong badly enough that the building was evacuated over a fire scare. That is the hidden price of catching all that energy. To be useful, you have to store a huge amount of power in a very small space, and a huge amount of power in a small space is, by its nature, dangerous. High voltage, heat, the risk of fire, all the things that make an engineer lie awake. And for all that, the boost was marginal, often used just to defend position, not to overtake. So they did something remarkable. For the 2010 season, every team agreed together to simply not use it. It was still perfectly legal in the rulebook. They just stopped. This is the ban in our title. Not a rule from above, but a collective shrug from the paddock. Too costly, too heavy, too risky for too little. But here's the thing about a good idea, it doesn't stay buried. For 2011, with the rules tweaked to make room for the weight, the teams brought it back. And by 2014, energy recovery wasn't a bolt-on gadget anymore. It was woven into the very heart of Formula One's hybrid engines, now clawing back waste energy, not just from braking, but from the heat of the exhaust as well. The technology they'd walked away from had become the thing the entire sport was built around. And while F1 argued with itself, the road quietly took the idea and ran. Every hybrid and electric car you can buy today does regenerative braking. That gentle tug when you lift off the accelerator in a modern car, that's the motor-turning generator, topping up the battery, exactly as those Grand Prix cars did. Your car recovers a slice of its energy at every junction, every roundabout, every hill. But remember that flywheel, Williams' beautiful spinning disc. Here's where it lands, and it's the best part of the whole story. That flywheel technology was sold on, developed further, and fitted to city buses. Real ones, in service, in London and Oxford. When the bus brakes at a stop, it spins up a carbon flywheel to 36,000 RPM. When it pulls away, the flywheel shoves it back up to speed. The result? Fuel savings of more than 20%, sometimes approaching 30%. The very same idea even went to Le Mans, helping win the world's toughest endurance race. From a Grand Prix car to the 24 hours of Le Mans to the number 12 to the shops. One invention. So was it banned? For one strange season, effectively yes. The cleverest teams on Earth built this system, then agreed to leave it in the garage because it was too heavy, too dear, and dangerous enough to throw a man to the floor. But an idea that turns wasted heat back into useful power was never going to stay in the garage for long. The system Formula One nearly gave up on now slows your hybrid, saves fuel on your bus, and quietly hands back a little of the energy you'd otherwise have burned off at every red light. Not invented by F1, but proven, hardened, and set loose on the world by it. So here's my question for the comments. Does your car have regenerative braking, and can you actually feel it working when you lift off? Tell me what you drive. And the loop I want to pull next time. Formula One now recovers energy from heat from the exhaust itself. How on earth do you break heat and turn it back into speed? That's the next video. Subscribe, and I'll see you there.